Now, we had talked a little bit about money on the last study, and we didn't get finished with all that, but I'm going to be dropping some of that and picking it up just a little bit later here. Now, the Bible says, "But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day," and Deuteronomy 8:18. If you bear that in mind, that God does want us to have wealth. He wants us to be able to be satisfied with what he's given us. When Paul said, "Be content with such things as you have," that word content doesn't mean go without. It means that whatever state you're in, whether you have abundance or not abundance, that you're content. You're a content individual. Contentment doesn't come through accumulation of things. Accumulation comes when there is an honest individual that operates and functions honestly and is a giver. The Bible says, not grudgingly, God loveth a cheerful giver. When you are in the area of wealth, which we're going to pick up here shortly, it is not how much wealth you have that's going to make you content. It is where your wealth is at. If your wealth is in your pocket, you're going to have problems. If your wealth is available for the God to use. Now look at this. Wealth is either your slave or your servant. It is either your God or your tool. If you use a hammer, for an example, it's a tool. But if you hit yourself with it, it would be a God. It's actually fighting against you. So what you need to understand is this prosperity message that we have out here. What's warped about that is they're right. God wants you to have wealth. But if you get it just because you're greedy, greed is a slave driver. There are people who are just so greedy. Let me give you an illustration. Years ago, they decided in this area to do a certain thing, which I'm not going to say on the air here. I'm not on the air, I guess, but anyway, wherever I'm at. They're going to do this temporarily. You know, there's something in me says, no, you get that money in your hands, you're going to forget about the temporary. Because if nobody says anymore, it's the same thing with gas and everything else. If you don't usually have gas dropping. Now, it'll drop, but generally what that does is keep you from getting upset, you know, and it's up and down and up and down. So there's fluctuation in there. But they just keep going and keep going. Do you think the days will ever come, as long as we're in the leadership where we are now, that gas prices will ever come back to $1 a gallon or even 50 cents a gallon or 35 cents a gallon and so forth like this? Well, it doesn't matter what it costs to make it. It's a thing that's driving these people. We can operate things different, but what the wealth is, wealth that is gotten out of a drive will never have satisfaction to it. It is a slave driver. You become a servant to your wealth rather than wealth becoming a servant to you. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 18 has this to say, "Behold that which I have seen, it is good and comely for a man to eat and to drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labors that he taketh under the sun all the days of his life, which God hath given him, for it is his portion." It's a good thing. He says, go on and enjoy your life. Enjoy the things you make. Where Nebuchadnezzar got in problems when he walked out and said, "Is this not great Babylon which I built?" by the might of my power, and so forth. And instantly the Lord hit him. Because it is, remember, but thou shalt remember, it is the Lord thy God that giveth thee power to get wealth, not your intellect. When you make money with your intellect, your ability, and your schemes, you will not enjoy it. I don't care how much money you got. There's many a person has killed themselves. That's the same thing with fame. There's nothing wrong with fame. There's nothing wrong with you being exalted. But if you exalt yourself, you're in pride. And God hates pride. So what happens is you can have all kind of fame. Elvis Presley had a lot of fame. And he had a lot of money. I mean, he had money. But where was his joy? Where's his satisfaction? You see, it wasn't there. He shouldn't be a dead man. He's not that old. He could be living yet. But you see, the thing of it is, any time that wealth becomes your God, you are its servant. And the intentions of God is that your money is your servant. Your money serves you. It's a tool. Now, wealth management, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, that's hard to imagine that Paul said in 1 Timothy 6:10 that he said it like this: the love of money is the root of all evil. The love is in the wrong place. Everything is centered around that love of money. Now, let me show you how this works. If you have love for money, the love for God is going to go down. If you have love for money, you don't care about your neighbor. You will take advantage of people. You'll crook and cheat and everything else. So your whole system is centered around you. And it brings you sorrow and disappointment. I've known people that had all kind of money, and they weren't happy at all. It was just a struggle all the time. How can I make more? How can I make more? How can I make more? See, the accumulation of money is not satisfactory until you're content. And then you get that contentment in you that comes from heaven, then the money is not... all right, listen, if you own houses and lands, which the Bible says you're supposed to, in fact, it's a guarantee to you. I don't have it on here, but he said, any man give up, and forsake everything else, he'll have lands and money and all kinds of things. But he can't do that unless you meet the condition. See, lay not up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust does corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither rust nor moth nor rust does corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. Watch the person that's got his treasures in heaven. The Bible says where your heart is, there's where your treasure is. Now I want you to notice, all right, when your treasure is in heaven, all the money you have, you're not governed by that. So if you see a need, you give. You are not under pressure. It's a willing. God loveth a cheerful giver. So a person who's trying to hang on to wealth will probably lose it somewhere or the other. But you see, rust and corruption cannot affect that's up there. It is not the amount of money you have that makes you secure. It's the amount of trust you have in God instead of wealth. If you trust riches, they're going to go down. Someday, I understand Mr. Rockefeller was a very wealthy man. But you know what? He could only live so long. Where's his money go to? Solomon said one time, he said, what bothers him is, what's going to happen to my wealth after I leave? Will some fool get it? And so this is all things that we need to take care of. Now, Paul said, charge them the rich in this world's goods, that they be not high-minded nor trust in uncertain riches. He's saying the riches are uncertain. They're here today, gone tomorrow. There's a very wealthy man and a woman, which I know something about. I know a good bit about, really. And they were extremely wealthy. They had lots and lots of money. I mean, there was no lack of anything. But when the Depression came and everything fell out, this fellow lost everything he had one night. And he said to his wife, I don't have but one option. And that is, I'm going to kill myself. I've lost. You know, his God was money. He killed himself. And his widow now says, you know, the Lord has always blessed us. And I'm not about to be having my money centered on earthly things. Do you know that woman died? Who knows how much she's worth? She recuperated and was wealthier probably than they were when he was living. Because her attitude was right. Now, I'm not saying you go get rich just because your attitude's right, but I'll tell you what. A person who has problem with reaching out and taking money greedy, or give me this, or you ought to help me. I'll tell you what, a poor person should never say, please help me, please help me. If everybody's operating correctly, they will discern in the spirit whether that person needs help or not. But most of the people that's out there begging for money now is mishandling money. And it's really causing problems. You start saving up money and to get in your savings account, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon the earth. He says where moth and rust does corrupt and where people will steal it. Your protection comes when you are depending on the Lord to take care of you. All right, let's suppose that you're going to get ready for retirement. You're laying up for retirement. There's not a thing in the world wrong with that. But you can't trust that because it may not be there when you need to go. But it's good common sense for you to prepare and prepare for things. But here's what happens to the rich man. James chapter 5:1. I'm going to read a good bit here on this, and just listen to this. Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your misery that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupt, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and your silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat up your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped up treasures together for the last days. Behold, a hire of the laborer who hath reaped down your fields, which is kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cry of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure in the earth, and been wanting. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he does not resist you. Not a very good sign for a rich person. But that person could have all that wealth and completely be in God's will, plan, and purpose. Job was extremely wealthy. Abraham was wealthy. But their wealth didn't have them. They had the wealth. They were in charge of wealth, not wealth in charge of them. In Deuteronomy chapter 24:15 says, at his day shalt thou give him his hire. That's a hired fellow, a fellow you're hiring. Neither shall the sun go down upon it, for he is poor, and setteth his heart upon it, lest he cry against thee unto the Lord, and be sent unto thee. God said, you don't pay your bills. And if that person cries out against you, you got yourself wrong. Well, I couldn't afford it. I couldn't help it. No, what you need to do is find out where did you spend your money at. You made some obligations. Oh, no. I've already spoke about this, so it's no use me just keep saying it, because if you didn't get it by now, well, you probably never will. A greedy, cheating person is in trouble with God. Now let's talk about a little bit about saving management here. Do you know it's all right to save? I believe it is. But I am not sure how much God really expects us to save. I think what wealth is for is coming and going. It's a flowing. You just keep moving with it. And that's where the blessings of the Lord come. I know a dear old precious fellow that put that to proof. He went to mission work. And he decided that I'm not asking anybody on earth for anything. They have to talk to me about it. He went to the Lord and he began to talk to the Lord about it. And he said, I traveled throughout the world, and the most money I had in my pocket when I left in the United States was $5. And he traveled the world. See, what he's done is he knew how to operate in the plan of God. If he could do it, don't you think we can do it? Let me read something else to you here. About, well, I'm just a little premature for that. Maybe I better hold that off for just a little bit. It says, charge them that are rich in this world's good, that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy. God expects you to enjoy your wealth in your farm. But now if you got something wrong with it, then... Now let's say about this saving again. If you're saving money with the intentions it's saved up in heaven, the Lord can touch it at any moment. I had money in the bank, saving. I was saving it up. And the Lord said to me, can't have that. You'll have to listen to me very carefully because I'm going to make you get rid of some of that. Okay? You know what? It never bothered me. I'll tell you what I was planning to do with it, but that isn't what he was thinking. And I started just doing what he said do. When he'd say something, I just did it. And all of a sudden, you know, that thing never changed. It kept staying the same. If I gave away $1,000, $1,000 came in. And I think what the Lord has shown me is, listen, if you hold that, it's not going to work. But that's just amazing to me how this is working. So if he says to do something, now don't pray that he asked you to give for me to give you something, because it might not work for you. But you see, the idea of it is treasure in heaven. We're not trusting Egypt with our insurance or anything else. It's all right to have insurance, but you don't trust that stuff. It may not last anyway. Now, let's talk about this debt and borrowing management. How much should you borrow? You know, contrary to what some people think, I am not a person who thinks you shouldn't borrow money. Because in the generation in which we live, if you actually do borrow money, you can take it and start a business or whatever you're going to do. Most people couldn't go out and start farming today without borrowing money unless they really hit the jackpot. What happens to when you overborrow or when you owe more than you can repay? Here is the thing, folks. All right, if I have a hillbilly, mountaineer, defeated feeling, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to step out and expect God to bless me with a practically new automobile, I'm just wasting my time. The Lord told me straight out, I cannot bless those kind of people. That's the reason they stay poor all the time. The blessing of the Lord cannot rest upon them, and behind the scene, most of those people are trying to live off of somebody else. So the blessing of the Lord not upon them. And they can't understand it, so they try to borrow more than they can handle. If you decide that you're going to do things spiritual, the Lord said to me, a spiritual person operates completely different than a carnal person does. A spiritual person borrows money in a spiritual realm. He has heaven behind him. Heaven is blessing him. And just because you say, well, I've been blessed so far, maybe you haven't. See, here's the difference between a spiritual-minded person and a carnal-minded person that has a low-class operation. You can buy, let's say that a rich man went out and he bought a brand new automobile. And he decided, you know, I've got a lot of money. I'm going to give that family over there a brand new automobile just like I bought. I'm going to give it to those people because they got a family to raise. They're kind of poor and so forth. 3 weeks later, that guy looks at that fellow's car over there and it looks like a junkyard. What's the difference? That vehicle give trouble. That vehicle's under curse. That vehicle is under a curse because somebody's not managing correctly. That's why we have to manage correctly. That thing, it can be a curse in short order, and if you loan them your vehicle, they can have that thing wrecked in a short order. Something will go wrong. Why? Because the moment that person touches the steering wheel, the curse is on your vehicle. So you can loan and do everything else, and they'll come back to you and say, well, let me give you an illustration. A fella which had one of those mentalities borrowed a tractor off of me. Carelessly ran over a pipe and blew the tire out. In fact, he didn't just blow the tire out, tore it up. Now, we're talking a lot of money for a big tractor wheel that's that high. And he said, well, that's not my tractor, so you'll have to fix it. It's not my tractor. He's borrowing it for nothing. Now, let me give you a little more information. A fellow borrowed a very expensive piece of equipment off of me. Mentality the same way. And he wanted to use it. I said, look, I don't want you running that thing. I have to run it. I knew the curses on him. That's his way of doing things. I said, listen, that's mine. It was a corn picking machine. You know what he did? He got on the thing and wrecked it. In fact, completely destroyed the thing. It wasn't worth nothing. And all he said was, I'm sorry. It isn't my machine, it's yours. A fellow borrowed a piece of equipment off me almost new. He ran into something and tore it to pieces. And he brought it back to me. And he said, you'll have to fix this thing before you use it. And I looked at him and said, well, hold it. I said, you did the wrecking. He said, that's not my machine, it's yours. And none of these fellows ever paid me for nothing. Now, when you're borrowing something off of someone, tools, trucks, or whatever it is, if you got a curse under you, you can have a mess in a hurry. Something will happen. And that's why some people don't like to loan out anything, and I'm one of them. I don't like to loan out stuff to somebody I know is going to turn into a curse. You've got to bear this in mind. I mean, widows are a target to that. Widows, they want to borrow money, they want to borrow trucks, they want to borrow cars, they want to borrow, I guess they don't borrow motorcycles off of them, but borrow everything. Can I borrow your wheelbar? Can I borrow your this? And can I borrow that? I was a borrowingest man you ever saw in your life. They used to laugh at me for being a loan company. I mean, it didn't make any difference if a fellow needed $20 or whether he needed a hoe or a rake or a lasso or a wheelbar or a truck or a car or a tractor. I became a victim. I'm going to show you how this borrowing worked. We were living in the South, and I said to the boys, okay, go down and get the tractor and bring it up here. We got to get this done. They come back and said, Pop, the tractor's not down there. I said, well, I wonder who got the tractor. Somebody must have borrowed it. Never said a word to me. I said, well, get the other tractor and put the post hole digger on. We'll go dig in post holes. They come back and said, Pop, the post hole digger's not there. I said, James, go get the log chain, and then let's go to the woods and take care of those logs down there. Come back and said, The log chain's not there. By this time, I am not saying glory, hallelujah, praise the Lord. So I called up and said, do you happen to have my tractor? Yeah, but I'm using it. You can't have it now. I've got to finish this job. You know what? I had to start managing who gets my stuff. So I called a fellow with a log chain. Well, first I called a fellow about the postal digger, and he said, I'm using it, and I got to help here, and I have to have it. So I called another fellow, found out where the log chains. I called him, and he said, I tell you, I'm busy, but if you need it, you can come and get it. I'd have people walk in the barn and take stuff out and never say a word. Go borrow it. And that's the reason I'm teaching this. That's not good management. And listen, there has to be a place where you may have to lock your stuff up so nobody can borrow it. Now, I'm going to tell you this is the worst one I've ever heard about borrowing. This is the worst I've ever heard. But I know this fella. He's a kind-hearted old gentleman. He's always been kind-hearted, and he's a loaner. Gives everybody everything. But this guy, somebody came in and said, could I borrow your brand new silage wagon, where you blow silage on the wagon and it runs off, and goes into the blower and up there. And he said, yeah. So they borrowed his wagon. And he called him and said, hey, I need that wagon back. Well, we don't have it. Well, he said, you borrowed it. No, we don't have it. I don't know. I guess we brought it back, I guess. You know, this man had to go out and buy another because he can't find his wagon. Brand new one. The next year, the fellow went way back in the back end of his farm, clear back at the back end, and there sat that brand new wagon back there in the corner. They forgot to take it back. And he said, look, I can't do this no more. You can't borrow stuff off of me anymore. This is what I'm calling management. Folks, if you don't have any better neighbors than that, you might move. And what you need moving at first is your idea. I mean, people borrow stuff off of you. I've had people borrow stuff and come back and say, the old lady said she didn't have any money, so I don't have any either, so thanks for using it. They borrow your fishing equipment, your motors, they borrow everything. And I've had people come in, could you loan me $20? Could you loan this? Could you loan that? Can you loan this? Can you loan that? And especially in the South, I had that going all the time. And I told this one lady, you ever miss a payment on this, you'll never get any money off me again. She missed a payment and came back and wanted another $20, and I said, no. Not getting any till you pay that off. She went around and told people I was a crook. You're going to have to manage that stuff. It's all right. Give them thee that asked us then, from him that would borrow, thee turn not thou away. All right. Then as he said, let them take advantage of you. He did say if they want to borrow your coat, give you your cloak also. What I'm asking is this. How much of this stuff do you put up with? You're going to have to manage your life. After all, you're going to be poor. If you're going to buy stuff for everybody else to wreck and ruin, and I mean, it costs me thousands of dollars. I mean, many thousands of dollars by people breaking up my stuff. You have to take some responsibility, folks. If you're going to borrow something off your neighbor, let me show you a thing that happened to me. I mean, I'm real careful not to borrow anything. But I said to a precious friend of mine, I mean a friend that sat on that front seat up here one time trying to get him saved. And I said to him, you know, I don't borrow stuff off of you in particular, but I just wondered, I said, my mower's in the shop. Could I just borrow your mower to mow up a little bit here? Oh, he said, you may use my mower anytime you want to. So he said, sure, I'd be glad to loan it to you. I'm going to watch this attitude on this guy. And I put gas in that thing, because it was out of gas, and pulled the thing to start it, and when I did, it blew up and burned completely up. It went poof. It burned that mower up. And I told Esther, we didn't have money enough to buy one there, and I said, what are we going to do now? And he came over that evening to see how I was getting along. I said, look, I'll have to buy you a new mower. He said, you're not buying me anything. That could have happened to me the same as you. He said, that's not your lifestyle, and I'm not about to get you buying me a new mower. He said, I take full responsibility for that mower. It could have happened to me. And he wouldn't let me give him anything. And you see, I said before, and this is an awful thing to say, but if you really want if you want to see Christianity work, you don't find it in the Christian. Generally, you find that some old sinner does a better job handling Christianity than they do. And that's awful, isn't it? Now let's talk about renting equipment from a place where they rent tools and so forth. Okay, you go to this commercial rental place, and I went into a rental place one day and rented something, and I looked at that thing and I thought, is this the kind of teeth this thing's got on? I said, yeah. I said, well, they look like they could break off. She said, oh, well, that's the kind we recommend using. So I'm using this to cut weeds and grass and stuff, this machine, and that thing hit a rock and broke all of them. So I went back in and I said, hey, you better check that machine out. I said, I broke all the teeth off of that thing. She looked at me and she said, Mr. Rhodes, that's all right. You will not pay for that. We'll take care of that. She said, nobody else pays for stuff like that. Why should you? I said, no, I'm offering to pay for it. I want to. No, I'm not charging for it. But I tell you, it's good to check with that thing. If you're going to do something, let them know what you did. See, the thing of it is, folks, we've been going along just no accountability, no responsibility, because we're not managing our finances, we're not managing our borrowing, we're not managing our loaning, we're not managing things is the reason we're in the trouble we're in. You start managing and you have money enough to go around, believe it or not. And you start managing your life according to the Bible and you'll have jobs. Now, maintenance management. Some people fix automobiles and stuff when they don't need fixing. Just fix and fix and fix. And they take this off and they do that. And I guess they like playing with that kind of stuff. But don't fix anything don't need fixing. Now, that's a don't, But what about changing oil and checking the oil in your vehicles? It's so easy to crawl in them and just... Another thing, while I'm thinking about it, it might be a good idea to check your stickers on your windows every once in a while, see if they went out. That's one of the hardest things for me in the world to do is keep tack on that thing. I think I got enough to do without looking at the windows, see if they got the right number on them. But anyway, that's a part of life. Changing oil. Somebody crawled in one of our vehicles one time and said, hey, Brother Rhodes, they borrowed it, I think. Said, Brother Rhodes, you know when the oil was changing this thing last time? I said, no, I don't. You might want to check it out. See, what you got to do, if you get busy, you can forget those things. And what I'm suggesting we do is manage better. It wouldn't hurt you some evening after supper is just walk out and check your vehicles and make sure that the ticket's right and you got a county sticker and all this on. I tell you what, a person who maintains things, when the board comes off, put the board back on. When something needs fixing, fix it. You've heard this illustration before, but Esther had an uncle that had a beautiful farm. A real beautiful farm. And a very, very wealthy man. after his decease, bought that farm and gave it to his son to run. This man is wealthy, but his son is... The daughter in the family was exactly opposite the son in the family. The son in the family was a hillbilly type of fella. He had to do a certain thing, wear his hat backwards and all kind of things. You know that wearing hat backwards will tell you a whole lot of things. You know, I was in getting the license, to get my license, and an old fella, he came in there and had that hat on the back of his head, you know, standing up there like this. And the lady said, you have to either turn your hat around or take it off. Or I'm going to take a picture of you like that. He took it off. He ain't going to be... You know what? The state says we can take a picture of you like that. But in yet a Christian magazine the other day, they had a picture of a fellow with a hat on backwards. And he's a good Christian boy. I tell you, you ask the world, they got more sense than we do sometimes. Now, this fella that I'm talking about, he has his hat wearing wrong and he's... all kinds of things. You go look at that farm today, it's a trash yard. Tires and old wrecked vehicles and junk cars and tractors and trucks sitting all over the place. Boards falling off the barn and weeds growing up and thistles and everything else. And right down the road, less than 2 miles, is his sister. And you'll see a farm with everything in order. What's the difference? Management. All the difference is management. The one was a poor fella. The other is very wealthy. It all depends. Now let's talk about health. Health management. Now we can say, all right, this food is sanctified. I want to ask you something. If you don't take care of your food properly, do you think the Lord will sanctify it when you pray over it? Now, you just think about that for just a little bit. There are people that let meat and things sit out for hours, and then they feed it to their family and can't understand why they got the flu or sick or something, and the children got diarrhea and they don't know what's wrong with them. If you was to check your food, if you was to check it, and find out what your food is really, the poison that's in it, the improper handling of food, the carelessness. You take, I don't have anything here to demonstrate it, but I want to show you something. Just when somebody puts a glass on the table and grabs it like this to set it down, you don't handle glasses like that, or what you're going to drink out of. They have a habit of just doing that. Well, that means that anything on your fingers will get into there. And the same thing is picking up a spoon. They pick up a spoon with the eating end. And folks, there's germs all over that. You say, well, I washed. You sure? I'd like to see the law come into effect where they have to check restaurants. When a fella comes out of the bathroom and say, hey, I want to check your hands. We're going to put it under here and check the bugs on it. We're going to see what's on it. Did you know that they started checking seafoods back about 5-6 years ago, more than they were, and they were surprised to find that a lot of the seafoods have human waste on them. People go to the bathroom, come back out and clean fish, never clean up. I'm saying to you, you can eat all organic foods. You can do what you want, take all your vitamins and your minerals and eat healthy. But if you don't take care of the food right, it can cause you a problem. The Lord said to me one day that most of the families that are sick all the time, it's in their food problems. It's mishandling of food. Folks, you're going to have to manage your food. Some people think I'm critical, but I'll tell you what. I got a friend that's in the fishing business for years. He's a guide. And him and I kind of grew up together, so we've known each other for many, many years. And he told me one day, he said, you'll never catch me fishing without ice in this boat, and that fish will go in ice the moment that it comes off of that hook. Because if that fish dies before you get it cleaned and ready for the skillet, it's already poison in it. He said, you get poisoned right one time, you'll do what I'm saying do. I read an article just recently. A fellow said that if you buy fish that is all frozen together, they're not fit eating, throw them away. He said if fish aren't frozen individually, they will not be frozen enough to keep the bacteria from hitting them, and many people are sick and don't know why. And restaurants really need to understand that. The clean food, you could have every nutritional food and use dirty hands. And let me show you something. If you was to check your towels after everybody washes their hands and wipes them, your towel is probably dirtier than it was before they washed. Because what you do, you loosen the dirt on your hands, and then you wipe them off on the towel. So the next person is all cleaned up and gets the towel. Now all their germs is on there. You ought to check it sometime. See what your towel looks like. Get a white towel sometimes, a real white towel, and hang it up and let your children wipe their hands on it. Let the pop come in and so on like this. Check it out. Just see what's on it. See, refrigeration, we have a refrigeration for a reason. But if you're going to wait till stuff is half rotten before you're going to... I've ate more poisoned food out there on the road than you ever seen in your life. I've had so much poisoned food and got sick off of it. And you know another thing, in case y'all don't know it, but you can drink water here in this valley because you're used to the bacteria in that water. But you go somewhere else, that water could make you sick. And that's one thing that I have to work with all the time. Your body, because you're changing bacteria. They're different kind of bacteria. And your body is made up of bacteria whether you like it or not. There's billions and untold billions of bacteria have to be in your body. Some's good, some bad, but the good ones is supposed to drive out the bad ones. Let's talk a little bit about hygiene management. Hygiene, proper washing and brushing of teeth. Did you know that there is a time to retire a toothbrush? Y'all ever hear of that? I mean, people use a toothbrush for 20 years. That's not any good, folks. That thing is... I'll tell you what, a toothbrush is a deadly thing. Now, if you Clorox them every once in a while would be a good idea. But brush your teeth with a clean brush might keep you from getting sick. I think that's about all you need. And put a clean towel up every once in a while. That's the reason I like paper towels. And that mouthwash, you know, I just took a big shot of garlic before I left the house this morning. And I have an obligation now that I put mouthwash in my mouth before I come up and talk to you. I don't want to blow that in your face. All right, now let's go down here to sanitation management. They're all kind of together here. Eating and drinking after each other. I tell you, folks, I have seen more people get, if one member suffer, they all suffer. There's a family that I know. Everybody come in, eat off each other's plate, drink out of the same cup and everything else, and they was always sick. And this preacher told me, I can't understand why my family just gets sick. It just seems like somehow God, I don't know, he don't understand why God allows them to be sick. Well, I was in that guy's home before that preacher's home on numerous occasions, and this is the woman that I told you, I don't know how many times, that she dried a diaper that was really stinky and never washed her hands and put the bread on the table for us to eat. And the children is guts not running down their nose and wiping on each other and stuff. And then we're going to eat that junk. And everybody's in the field and everything, getting their hands in the food. And then want me to eat at that table? You don't want to be discourteous, but I tell you what, folks, we need some management. That fellow's children always got sick. One member suffered, they all suffered. I tried to help him. He couldn't understand. He thought that's critical. But he couldn't understand why our children didn't get sick. We didn't get sick. We managed different. One time in Pennsylvania, everybody in the country got sick except the Rhodeses. Literally, everybody's sick. So my wife and I and all of our children had to take and help everybody else that's sick. Boy, you better be careful. You'll get sick too. No, we're planning to do it different. You know, folks, it's just good to have something like this around. You know, this is not to make you smell good. It's to make you keep from dying. It's a germ killer, hand sanitizer. And I tell you, that's a handy thing to have, particularly if you had a little bottle of it when you're eating at a restaurant, especially buffet, where this fellow handles that spoon, and 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 this baby handles it, and this child sucks on it. And another thing, and then you go to eat with your fingers, and you're live. And let me tell you something else. I've seen more children pick up a salt shaker and lick the top of that salt shaker, and the parents sit there and look at them. And slovers on it. You want some salt, Brother Rhodes? Oh, I'll just do without salt now, thank you. Listen, folks, this is a part of managing. You say, aren't you kind of critical? I'll tell you, I'm trying to save somebody from sickness and diseases. I've witnessed this, folks. I already touched on this. I've watched this. Children play with the tools that's been washed. The spoons and the forks, and the children are playing with them. And they put them back in the drawer, and little old Petey, he comes up and he gets in everything, and he pulls this drawer open, and he pulls that drawer open, and he pulls this drawer open, and he pulls that drawer open, and he's got his fingers on this, and he's got his fingers on that, and his fingers on this, and they put it back, and then you get it the next time. It's loaded, ready for you. I saw a mother once washing dishes, and her child was there as the mother put the dishes over. This little child was playing with the dishes she was washing. And the mother watched her. But it's washed. You know, it's washed. He that hath clean hands and a pure heart is not lived through soul and vanity nor sworn deceitfully. That clean heart has to do mainly with the spiritual end. But I tell you what, folks, when Jesus said that you meet the people that the Pharisees was eating with cleaning their hands up, he said they're making a ritual out of it, they're making a big deal out of it, and he said you ought to do some other things besides washing your hands. He isn't saying it's all right to eat with your hands dirty. He's telling you put the first things first. Sure, you wash your dishes. A person with a pure heart has pure hands, believe it or not. If you have a pure heart, your hands will be pure and your hands will be clean. If you have a clean heart, you'll have cleansed. You're going to clean up. I tell you, folks, we're going to have to manage some of this stuff. It's no point in us asking God for healing when, let's hit this allergy thing. Allergies is the same type of a thing. Dust and so forth. This can be this is a problem in many people's lives. This perfumes and dust and grass and pollen and pets and bees and stings and etc. You know what? The doctor said something to me one time that I never forgot. He said an allergy is not an allergy on one thing, it's many. If you take care of the one thing, then that'll help you not to get it on the second one. It isn't that you're allergic to this or this or this. It's mainly because you have so many different things that you're working with that is not proper, and therefore throws you off. Now, you know, I think it's allergies is something we have to manage. If you can't be around certain things, manage it right. Someone asked us one time, my wife and I, she had a certain perfume or something she had on, and this person said, if you don't mind, if we're going to be traveling with you, let's not use that perfume. Fine, that's it. Well, I could understand that. That's proper. That's management. You know, and sometimes people have to manage. I used to have allergies terrible bad. You know, I don't understand it. It don't make sense to me. If a neighbor down here would hang her clothes on the line, and I'm in this building right here, it could choke me up. And I don't even know it. I don't know that's anything. And I said, Esther, somebody's got clothes on the line because that detergent was messing me up. And I said, I can't live like this. I mean, on Monday when all the women were washing, I mean, I was in horrible shape. I had to get alone in a building all by myself and terrible. And you know what? I decided I'm going to take authority over that. And I'm going to show you management. Decided to take authority over that thing. And I'm not going to do this. It took me a while to do it. But you can hang all the clothes you want to out there now. Well, for years. And I think what we have to do is manage some of this stuff. It's not that it's not true. It's not that you don't have the problem. I'm not saying that. But let's start. I tell you what, a real allergy man said. And I could hardly believe what he said. But he said, if something that you eat or drink that you're allergic to, I suggest one day you make a decision to sit down and eat that or drink that you're allergic to. He said it'll help you get overcome. Because he said, if you know that you're allergic to something, you get all panicked. And he said, it's true, you do have an allergy to it. But he said, if you can do that, you can start breaking loose. I decided I'm going to do that. I had something make me get allergy problems every time. And, you know, I did exactly what the man said, and boy, all of a sudden, I got problems. And I said, oh, no, you're not coming on me. We're going to do this thing. I'm going to decide we're not going to have, you know, I haven't had trouble ever since. Now, I'm not saying it's all in your head. I'm not saying that, so if you don't get the idea that I said it's all in your head, I didn't say that. But if you're mowing the lawn and you can't handle it, management might say put a mask on to mow the lawn. Don't make your neighbor do it. Now, pet management. How many pets are you know, I mean, I've been in houses already where cats and dogs is all over the place. Ferrets and parrots and guinea pigs and chickens. Believe it or not, I was in a restaurant one time eating, and a pig came down through the restaurant when I was eating there. And about that time, I heard a chicken go, we're eating in there. I remember one country I was in, and they asked me what I wanted for lunch in this restaurant, and I said, I'll take chicken, fried chicken, because I figured that'd be fried. And after a while, I heard this hen going, ow, ow, ow. I said, Esther, there's our lunch. You know, snakes and lizards and ferrets and all kind of things. I'm not saying you can't have them. I'm not saying that. But you ought to at least make sure they're clean. And the cages are cleaned out occasionally, real occasionally. That your house is as odorless as possible. I mean, you know, there's a house not far from here that they had to tear down because the tenants were so dirty they could never get the stink out of that place. They tried to sell me that home, and I wouldn't buy it because I said, there's no way you get rid of that. I mean, when I walked into that place, the guy said, Mr. Rhodes, you don't need any key because the door is unlocked. Just walk in. I said, I'm going to see this home because it was pretty reasonable. And I walked in, phew! there was dog stuff all over the floor and stinking, and the dogs had scratched up everything that tore the house down. And I'll tell you, if somebody lives like that, somebody needs help. Now, I don't know how many of these pets you should have. If you don't have money and you just keep buying pets and feeding this pet and feeding that pet and buying this pet and feeding this pet, and you don't have money anyway, may not be wisdom. And I'm not here to tell you how many that ought to be. But one thing I can tell you, when children are cruel in handling pets, something's wrong. There's children that's really cruel. I mean, they beat on them and everything else. Just hammer on pets. And a pet is kind of a strange thing. That a pet, once it's tame, you can abuse it and misuse it, and it's not going to run away generally. It's the ones that's got the life in them yet that's getting pretty rough. And I'd like to finish this before I close this session. I tell you what, we had a friend, and I don't know why this is in your book. Well, anyway, the lady's name's in the book. But she's dead and gone, and she would be satisfied with me to say this. She had a little dog. And you walk into that woman's home, and that dog took over. Everything took over. That dog took over. I mean, the dog would decide what's going to be done, and they had to do it. The dog wants this, the dog wants that, the dog wants this. And it was so terribly bad. And but the poor little dog, you know, it wants this and it wants that, and the dog wants this and the dog wants that. And that dog was completely controlling that family, completely. I'll tell you another thing, that lice and ticks and fleas on dogs and cats and your children playing with that stuff and then wonder why they get sick. And man, listen folks, unclean pets and lice can make your children sick, can become a hazard to your children, and also the hair in their mouth. One of the things that I found out years ago was a lot of children are infested because they have cat and dog hairs in their throat and in their mouth, and they just, you know, their hands, they're putting their hands in the mouth after they've touched that dirty dog and a dirty cat, and then the child's sick. And well, let's on the next time, I hope we can have a real good one. We're going to change from the negative coming in. We're going to be talking about more of a positive thing, but I think it's all right. We need to talk these things. Is that right? Is that okay?